Hello, this is Jennifer Duffel presenting my final project, Podcasting in Education. So, what exactly is a podcast? According to Webster's Dictionary, a podcast is a topic specific program made available in a digital format for automatic download over the internet. It is known as something that's called time shifted media, meaning that it can be accessed by anyone at any time, unlike your regular radio or television shows that require you to be tuned in at a specific time. Podcast is not an actual word, but an acronym. The POD stands for Playable on Demand, and the cast is short for broadcast. So, the history of podcasting. Podcasting itself is a relatively new phenomenon. In 2004, an MTV DJ, Adam Curry, and his friend David Weiner are going to invent or come up with the first podcast. That same year, a newspaper is actually going to coin the term podcast. In 2005 through 6, both Apple and Yahoo released support systems for podcasts that allow you to subscribe to your favorite shows. In 2005 through 2007, President George W. Bush is going to be the first president to have his weekly address delivered via podcast. You're going to see a slight jump in popularity in 2006 thanks to Steve Jobs. He's going to use one of his keynote addresses to demonstrate how to create a podcast. And then jump to 2013, 1 billion podcast subscribers via Apple. But then in 2014, the popularity of podcasts are going to skyrocket thanks to a true crime show called Serial. I wanted to show the steady rise in the popularity of podcasts, specifically in Americans ages 12 and up. You see here in 2006 that only 10% of people had ever listened to a podcast. That's going to steadily increase until 2019, where we're up to around 51% of Americans have listened to a podcast, and at least 32% of Americans have listened to one in the past month. Okay, so using podcasts in the classroom. The purpose of a podcast is to deliver content on a regular basis. Utilizing podcasts is going to give us the opportunity for project-based learning, and this can take place in two different ways. The first one is going to be through using pre-made podcasts that cover the topics that you're teaching in your class, or the second way, creating your own classroom podcast. So, if you're going to use a podcast that's already made, which is fantastic, it's a great way to work on critical thinking and listening comprehension skills. Some of the things that you're going to need to do, first off, research the podcast. Make sure you know what it says. It's never wise to play a podcast that you have not screened. Then you're going to make some kind of a questionnaire that the kids are going to fill out as they listen. Make it simple, something, what's the name of the main character, time, date, what's the main plot. And then when they finish the episode or a group of episodes, ask them something a little bit more thought-provoking, such as give them a prompt for an argumentative essay. In my class this year, my Arkansas history class, we'd had something called Freaky Friday, which is where at the end of the week, we would take something that we had been studying and kind of find the lore and legends that went along with it. I would play an episode from a podcast called Lore, which discusses how American folklore got its origins. And the kids would listen, they would answer their questions, and then at the end of class, we would discuss what they thought. These podcasts are great because a lot of times it pits two characters against each other. One's going to be innocent, one's going to be guilty, but you don't know till the end. And the kids get to pick a side, and it's just great for discussion and debate. Some of my favorite ones as a history teacher is Stuff You Missed in History Class, 30 for 30. This is actually sports history. My athletes love it. Lore, which is the one I was just talking about. Then you have Revolutions and The Way I Heard It by Micro. Okay, so the second option was to create a classroom podcast, which is fantastic, especially for the project-based learning side of it, because the kids are going to have to do pretty much all the work. They're going to come up with a topic, come up with the discussion questions, design the logo. They're going to talk amongst each other, interview each other. They're going to have to do the research on the topic. They're going to have to edit, and then they're going to have to publish. And because of all this, you're going to see four major benefits. And the first one is confidence, something that most of our students lack today. So they get nervous speaking in front of a crowd. A podcast allows them to speak in front of a non-visible audience. And this is going to give them opportunities to sharpen their skills as a speaker without the embarrassment of being in front of a crowd. The second benefit is reflection and discussion. Like I said, the kids are generally going to be working together as a group, and they're going to start having candid discussions over daily topics that they learned in class. Third is revise and publish. This is going to give students crucial editing skills that majority of today's students lack. And then the fourth benefit is actually a benefit for us teachers, and that's the assessment. It's going to give us the ability to assess our students' thoughts and knowledge, not just their writing. Okay, so podcasting focuses on the top layer of Bloom's taxonomy, allowing for creativity and innovation. Like I said, the kids design it, they come up with the questions, they do the research, they do the interviewing, they do, the questions, they answer the questions, they edit, and then they publish. All of that covers these top four layers. Okay, real quick, some of the great things about podcasts is that it can be used outside of the classroom. First, if a kid misses, they can log on to a computer anytime, anywhere, and they can get their lessons. They're going to be up to date on all classroom discussions. It's also great for parent involvement. A podcast gives a parent the opportunity to see exactly what their children are learning in the classroom. And additionally, you can tag a blog to your podcast that can generate outside of class discussion. Once again, back to the example of our Freaky Fridays, I noticed that my students were kind of doing this on their own. They were using Google Docs to discuss with each other outside of class, you know, well, I think this person is the killer, or no, I think this person did this, or this is what really happened. And so it was fantastic. And so I took their idea and made it more structured. Okay, so real quick, let's go over the pros and cons of podcasting in the classroom because there are some of both. The cons is you have to have availability to streaming devices. This past year, the school that I taught at was in a very low socioeconomic community, and I did have students who they could not get to a computer or Wi-Fi. And so if it couldn't be done in the classroom, it couldn't be done at home. Occasionally, you are going to run into students who are hearing impaired. But the great thing is you can always look up manuscripts to podcast, and a lot of them come with videos nowadays that have closed captions. There is additional setup and preparation required, and there is a startup cost, but it's not that bad. You and everyone else has what they need to start a podcast. You need a computer, a microphone, and an idea. And most of us have that. And if you don't, you're looking at somewhere between $100 to $200 max. Now, if you're wanting to get on the more professional side of things, you're looking anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000. Now, the pros. As we said earlier, it allows for any absent student to stay caught up on classroom lectures and notes. Parental involvement, it gives the parents the chance to communicate and see what's going on in the classroom. It improves critical thinking skills, listening comprehension, and time management. And then the fun one, it brings excitement to the classroom and it makes lessons come to life. I think so many times as teachers, we stick a textbook in front of a kid and expect them to read it, soak it in, and enjoy it. And that's just not the case. They may read it, but they never hardly retain the knowledge. So podcasts bring some excitement, and it makes the lessons come to life and jump off the page. Okay, so one of the first websites that I want to review is called Podbean. Um, if I will take anything from this project, it will be this website. I was so excited to find it. It made creating a podcast extremely easy and it walks you through step by step. So let's see what's going on here. So, first things first, I'm gonna log in and then fast forward a little bit. And now I'm at my dashboard. It's the first thing you see once you log in. And easy enough, you want to publish an episode. So click on that. Now, one of the things that I really like about Podbean is that it refuses to upload a document unless it is something that you created. If there's any kind of tag to anyone else, it will not let you do it because of copyright issues. So I'm going to choose file to upload. I'm going to pick a document and then I'm going to give it a name. And then it's going to download. If you want, you can describe what's going on here. You can see that you have two options, free or premium. Free is fantastic. It may take it a few seconds, but then you just hit publish and you have a successful podcast. And you have the option to give it a theme, change colors. You can hit play and show that it's working. And then there you go. I actually named my site Ramblings of a Junior High Teacher, and there's my podcast. So this is something I will definitely be utilizing in the very near future. Okay, so the second website that I want to be reviewing is something that we all have access to, which is iTunes. iTunes comes free on any iPhone and can be downloaded for free on any computer. The reason I specifically wanted to talk about iTunes is that it is a plethora of podcasts. Any podcast you need or want can be found on iTunes. For example, let's do The Way I Heard It, which is one of my favorite podcasts by Mike Rowe. You type it in, and there you go. Every one of the podcasts. Hit play. Okay, so you sampled it. If it's something you want, you click Get, and it downloads to your account, as well as you can share it to Twitter, Facebook, or copy the link. Let's say that's not your style. Let's go to lore, which is what I use a lot in my classroom. My kids love it because it's a little bit creepy. And there we go. You have all the lore. Same thing, sample an episode. See if you like it, and then get it. And that's the easiest thing. It's right there at your fingertips, especially if you don't want to make your own podcast, if you just want to use one that's already made. Okay, real quick, I do want to give a shout out to GarageBand. I'm not going to really be reviewing it. This is for more, if you want to get more the professional side of it, GarageBand is another free website and it's more for the sound mixing. So if you're wanting it to sound extremely professional, check out GarageBand. As far as that, that is the end of my research project. Here is my reflective paper. And my references. And thank you for watching.